So when the season 1 DVD of Night Gallery came out, there was extras on it of the second and third season, and one of these was this episode of season 3 starring Sally Field and Dean Stockwell, a very, very strong episode. According to David Jewell's famous blog post website about the show, this was Sally Field in a pre-Sybil multiple personality role. Now, to my knowledge, Sally Field is one of the most decorated actresses ever to appear on a Night Gallery. Now, this episode was season 3, number 13, Lucky 13, aired on May 13th, so double 13. It's called Whisper. Now, Jewel gives it 3.5 stars, and I tend to agree it's a very solid episode. The teleplay was by David Raphael, with story by Martin Waddell, directed by the great General Schwartz, with Dean Stockwell as Charlie Evans, Sally Field as Irene Evans, and Ken Smith as Dr. Kenaway. Now, this is one of the high points of the final season. Whisper reminds one of the good old days of the first 2 seasons, with a serious, complex script and performances along with direction by General Schwartz that make it instantly recognizable as a late production, with his very interesting decision to have on-screen narration that is at times spoken by Dean Stockwell's character directly to the camera. This is a challenging episode to many, not completely successful for some, but this is what Night Gallery could and did in its finest, most ambitious moments. Now, Field and Stockwell play a young married couple, Irene and Charlie Evans. Charlie, an architect by trade, has recently given up his profession and moved with his wife to rural Mississippi to, simply stated, try to make Irene herself again. Irene channels the personalities of deceased people. She's not completely taken over by these voices. In fact, Charlie accepts this as in a way as part of her makeup. He finds it charming to a degree and at most perhaps too understanding of a husband. Lately, however, the multiple occupants inside Irene have become more insistent, more dominant. Irene, of course, always comes back from these periods, but of late have been harder to shake. Some of this is explained by Charlie in voiceover narration, which he delivers facing the camera. Now, it works to a certain extent, but for people that don't get what he's trying to do, it doesn't. It is a highly unusual directorial gambit by General Schwartz, the kind of experimentation that was seen on screen in this time, the mid-1970s, sort of like the method play version. Now, Irene becomes frustrated by her inability to fully understand what the voice in her head, particularly a young mother named Rachel, are asking of her, and after one such attempt to get some clear answer regarding Rachel's insistence at a cemetery that she tracked down some summer house, she agrees to leave with Charlie to try to get away from the voices. On the night before they are to leave, while enjoying a fine last dinner at home, Irene suddenly leaves the dinner table and goes outside. Charlie follows her into a nearby wooded area when she finds Irene, who is speaking in a southern accent, referring to him as Johnny. She is now channeling Rachel. She asks for Johnny's assistance in pulling some stones away from a pile that seems to be made by people in order to conceal something. After she is satisfied with his work, she opens her shawl to produce a perhaps 2-foot bundle wrapped in cloth. She says that is their baby and that it deserves a proper burial this time. Charlie, getting more concerned at this scene, tries to open the cloth to see what is truly inside. Perhaps a dead cat, but Irene, Rachel, forbids him. She tells him to finish the job, and as she is tired, she retreats to a nearby bench to watch him finish. He places the bundle inside a rocky tomb, replaces the stones, and returns to his wife, hoping she will once again be Irene and no longer Rachel. When he gets to the bench, he reaches out to her, but she falls back, and we hear her voice say, "Oh, Charlie, I can't get back. I can't get back." Now, for Jewel, this was some highly satisfying mid-1970s cinema, truly ahead of its time. This was shot again in late 1972. General Schwartz is to be highly complimented for what he did with the script. Sally Field will go on to perfect his performance, again in a highly acclaimed TV movie Sybil, just a few years later. Although if I were Dean Stockwell's character, Jewel said, I would have been more concerned about my wife's mental situation. But then, I guess, in the early mid-70s, things were different, at least in a realm of supernatural television. Now, like any play, you can't arrive late to it to catch on. You have to watch this episode from start to finish. Now, I gave it 2 or 3 viewing. I never saw the episode until I got the DVD, and again, it worked as an extra. And I have great respect for Sally Field as an actress, but she went from The Flying Nun to performance like this within 3 years. That's amazing. And then Sybil, and then, Norma Ray, and then Places in Her Heart and all that. And for me, Sally Field at one point was the most underrated actress in the world. And she showed everybody within 5 or 10 years. The only thing comparable to it would be how Cher started off slow, got a lot of supporting parts to develop her craft, and became an Oscar winner. Sally Field, for me, ranks as a top 20 American actress of all time. And this is almost like a practice for her to play Sybil. Now, the Sally Field is not the largest woman on the planet. She's very demure, very petite. And for this type of characterization, it works. Now, Dean Stockwell, we all know what type of actor he was. He had a 67 years career on and off the stage, did a whole bunch of great parts. In the modern era, you know him for Quantum Leap and Blue Velvet and all that. But Dean Stockwell, pound for pound, could only act with Sally Field in this episode. I think the compassion Stockwell showed in all his roles helped bring out a better performance from Sally Field. And of course, Stockwell looks like 1970s, with a half perm. The poor man's, the poor man's Robert Redford, because he was a handsome guy too, eh? It's interesting to look at, like, the 70s only ended till about 1973. True story. Dad always said, my father said, started with the Beatles and ended it in 73. But this was the first of the modern 1970s, 80s performance by 2 key actors. You saw it later on in Roots and QB7 and Rich Man, Poor Man, where established movie stars were going back to television and making a TV production as big as the movie screen. This could easily have been shown on the big screen as part of a Night Gallery big screen movie. I would like to see 3 episodes of Night Gallery shown on the big screen, like a 1 and 40 minute, or 4 episodes, like The Caterpillar and this. And like, they tried the same thing with Twilight Zone the movie, and it didn't work. But you can imagine if you would have packaged something for international audiences, maybe Night Gallery 1975 or 76. This could be a good of a 3-part anthology, like 71 minutes, or like a movie package, the Night Gallery movie of the week. Again, 3.5 stars out of 4. There's no wasted movement in this episode. It feels like season 2, because season 2 had some really good, strong episodes, but mired in season 3 and what was coming next was some of the worst episodes of Night Gallery. This was literally one of the last gasp of what I think the most wasted dramatic anthology series of the modern era, because if they had the right editor and better scripts and not as much superfluous jack-leered bullshit like the blackouts and stuff like that, Night Gallery would have been the most important TV dramatic series of the early 1970s. But NBC dropped the ball, and Rod Serling was, he wasn't doing well. By 75, he was dead from his smoking and his heart trouble, and it's almost like a failed glorious experiment. Because the actors in season 3, there were some great actors in there, but you got to give them the right plots, eh? Anyway, thanks for listening, and if you like what we're doing in the Night Gallery podcast, give us a like, comment, and subscribe. Bye.